Hi guys, welcome to Coding Filler. In this tutorial, we'll be developing a robust web API and it's going to be in series and we'll be looking at the following topic: identity. Under identity, we'll be authenticating and authorizing user, and then role-based management. We'll be implementing policies and user permissions to be able to allow user to be able to specify what user can access and what they cannot access, and also to use identity user to manage user account and authentication. And then we'll move to API security. Under API security, we'll be using API security. Under API security, we'll be securing our endpoint, and then also use JWT token. We are going to be generating and validating JWT token, also implementing a refresh token and expiration of our JWT token. Also, we'll move to API key. We'll be using API key to manage our application, and this might also lead to multi-tenancy application. So also we'll move to developing simple wallet system. Under this simple wallet system, we'll be using it to manage accounts, create and managing user balance, and then also we'll be implementing deposit and withdrawal operation, also concurrency control on our wallet by using semaphore. So we'll be implementing a basic and introductions to semaphore and how they work, and then the practical use case, which is the number 3, by using a wallet system to see how semaphore worked in action. And also the 5th one, which is the additional topic and is optional. We'll be implementing logging and monitoring, error handling, API versioning, API documentation, and data encryption. Also caching system, either distributed caching or in-memory caching. All these have released a write-up of video on this before, but we are going to see all of them in action. So sit back and see what I have for you guys, and let's get started. So guys, I have a new project created and I name it Web API. So let's quickly look at the project structure. And before we do that, I will run it first. So I say that I haven't implemented anything, and this is just new. And this is .NET 8 Web API project. So let's confirm this. Double click on this. Then you see the target framework is .NET 8. Let's run it to see the project. So guys, this is the project, right? As you can see, this is just the default template, default weather forecast template, right? So let's quickly go back and review the project structure. Then we get started with the development, right? So I'll start the project from running. Then let's go to Project Solution Explorer, right? So inside this project, I have a folder called Common, and inside this Common, so I have a class called Service Response, and this Service Response is for data, and then the status code, the sources. So by default, if you declare variable bool, is false by default, right? And then the string message. This is a message that will be communicating to the user. And then this T data. So this is going to be the data that we are going to be returning back to the client, and then the status code as well. And then we'll indicate this status of the API call response, right? So I have another folder context. This is where we're going to keep our database context, and then the folder controller folder, and this is where we are going to have all our controllers. And then I have another folder DTOs. This is where we are going to have all our DTOs. Then entities. This is where we are going to have our database model, right? And then we have interface. This we are going to have our interfaces and the services, the main services, the main implementation is going to sit inside this folder, and then service collection. So when we implement this, you understand it better, right? So let's start by installing some NuGet package that we'll use in this application. Right click on it, then manage NuGet packages. So having done that, so the first NuGet package I will install there is Microsoft Tools. There, because we'll be running some migration, and don't forget we'll try as much as possible to follow solid design principle. So if you look at the project structure, this is just a basic project structure. This is not like a clean code architecture. So maybe in my next video I might do a video on clean code architecture project structure, right? But for this is just a basic, and then see how things go, right? So let's get started by installing some NuGet package that we will need, right? So first thing here, I will install Microsoft.ASP.NET Core. Microsoft, right? So Microsoft.ASP.NET Core .identity framework. Let's install this first. Let me browse it. Right, should have it under browse. Yeah. All right. So make sure you are installing the latest version depending on when you are watching this tutorial. Make sure you install the latest version. Click on install. Also click on apply. Accept. So having done that, let's install the entity framework itself. So I will remove the ASP and then remove the identity. So let's install the entity framework itself. Then click on this, click on install as usual. So guys, I had to pause the video to enable me to install all the NuGet package required, but these are the NuGet package I've installed so far. I have this installed, right? Microsoft.asp.authentication, JWT bearer, and then also the identity, then also this entity framework, then entity framework.design, and entity framework.core SQL server, and also entity framework.tools. So, and also install Newton software JSON, right? So these are the basic tools that we need for now, and then let's get started. Don't forget, we'll be following solid design principle, right? So let's get started by let's create our entity. Let's create our user entity. Right click on this entities folder, select add, then select class, right? So give it a name. In this case I've used user, right? User class. So having done that, so let's let it inherit from identity user. Entity, beg your pardon, then entity user, right? So having done that, inside this identity user, we have some couple of predefined entities like ID, username, email, phone number. So what we'll be doing here is to add other information that we want to save into the database, right? So I'll have to include string, first name, and then last name, then so let's also include address, address. I beg your pardon, I override first name, duplicate, and then let's include address. Then let's also have created at, that's right, datetime data type. It's going to be created at, right? So we want to capture when user account is created and then also when it's being updated. Updates at, right? So we can default this created type to datetime.utc now, so that we don't have to be including it every time and we don't have to include it in our model. By the time we are sending it to the database, it to go together by default. UTC now, right? Having done that, let's go and create our database context. Right click on the context folder, add, click class. So you can give it any name, but in my own case, I'll give it app db context. Right, click on add. All right, so let it inherit from identity db context by identity db context, right? Then you pass your user entity into it. Beg your pardon. So identity db context, let's bring in the namespace, press Ctrl Enter. The namespace is from Microsoft.asp.identity framework core, right? Then let's also bring the namespace of this user entity. It's from user.apl.entities. Okay, having done that, let's create a constructor. The shortcut, you can press CT or press tab to create your constructor for you. Inside this constructor, we're going to have the db context, option, right? So inside the db context option, pass your app db context to it, right? So having done that, so let's define the base options, right? And the base option is base. You pass the options variable to it, right? Having done that, so the next thing is to define our db set, right? Public db set. Then inside the db set, pass your user entity into it, and then give it a name. So this name is going to be users, because that will be the name of our table, right? So another thing I want you to take note here is by the time we run our migration, by default, identity will create the user table using ASP.NET users. In this tutorial, we are going to see or show you how we can modify it so that it will take our preferred name, which is users table. So just sit back and see how it works in action. So having done that, so let's go to our DTO. Inside DTO folder, right click and add a class, right? Call that class user DTO, right? Having done that, so this is going to be a record, right? So I've changed this guy to record, right? Then instead of this angle bracket, just change it to this, take out this, and then right. So inside this record, we're going to have a string. You are going to define every entity or every data we want to collect from the user. We have email. Then we also have string first, beg your pardon, first name, So make sure you are following this tutorial, and then we have string last name. So we also need the user password, string password. So this depends on your application. So sometimes, or in most cases, you might not necessarily collect the user password. You might write an algorithm to generate the password on the fly. Depends on what you are developing. But this is just a basic application, right? So we are going to be collecting the user password. And what again? Let's check our user entity. We have first name, last name, address. All right. So we'll also include phone number. Let's go back to our PTO. Going to have string address, then also string phone number. So these are the basic information we want to collect from the user. If there will be any in the future or in the course of this development, will include it. So having done that, let's go back to our AppDB context. We forgot to include something here. So let's include a model creator method. Protected override, beg your pardon, override void method. Override is incorrect. Double R override model creating, right? So base dot model creating, and then you pass your model builder to the method. All right. A model creating, not configuration. Model creating, yeah, beg your pardon, typo error, remove the E, right? Yeah, we are good, right? So having done that, so let's go to our program file.cs to configure our database. So we are going to be using SQL Server, right? So okay, let's add it somewhere around here, right? Like this is how I love doing my own, right? The connection string str then equals to builder dot configuration dot get connection string, right? Get connection string, and then you pass your connection string key to it. So I'll be using default connection. Your own case might be different, and just make sure that you're passing whatever you have in your app.json, right? Having done that, or now let's builder services add db context. db context. Inside your db context, don't forget we have our db context to be app beg your pardon app db context, right? So having done that, going to have options equals to options dot what type of database want to use dot use SQL server. Yeah, use SQL server. Then say your SQL server. So you pass your connection string to it, and then which is what we have here. Our connection string, just copy this guy, pass it here. Connection string, and then you can also have options dot option equals to options dot enable retry on failure, right? This will try as much as possible to retry if there is a failure in reaching your database before it throw an exception, right? So it's not compulsory, but I love to include it because for unforeseen reason, so you might have a failure on reaching your database, but with this will allow your this SQL Server method to try to read the database again, right, within some seconds. So having done that, let's go and what next? Think so I think let's go and configure our apps settings. Let's go and configure our database in app settings, right? So let's go to app settings. So this is our app settings.json, then the name of the connection string, and then the key is default connection string, and then pass your database name, right? So I'll be using localhost, right? If yours is Azure server or wherever this database is located, just pass it here, just pass the server here, then the database, right? This is the database, and then pass this trusted connection equals to true, and then trust certificate equals to true. This depends on what type of connection you are using, right? Having done that, so let's go and create our service. Let's go to our solution explorer, then service. Let's right click on it, then cross, then give it a name, account service, right? Let me just copy it, account service. All right, this account service, we are not going to make it public, right? We are going to seal it so that we don't want any other method or any other service to inherit it, right? That's why I'm going to declare it at seal. Going to be seal class. All right, let's create let's move to the interface. All right, let's add an interface, and then while creating it, just select interface and then give it I account service, right? There's the interface, right? So if you mistakenly name it as a public class, all right, if yours was like this, then just what we have to do to change it to interface, right? Having done that, let our interface, let our class main class inherit the interface, because don't forget we are going to be following solid design principle. So and one of the rules says, so look at it, interface segregation principle, right? The interface segregation principle states that the client should not be forced to implement interface they don't use, right? Instead of one fat interface, right? Many small interfaces are preferred based on group of method, each serving one submodule, right? So this is one of the solid principle, and the higher is interface segregation. So let's continue. So having done that, right? So let's bring in our constructor. City ROR, then so having done that, so let's inject our database context. So in this we'll be using, don't forget we are using identity server to manage our user, right? So this is how we are going to configure it. Private read only, private read only, user management, user manager, then pass your user class or user entity, pass it to it, and then user manager, right? Having done that, so let's bring the namespace for this user guy, right? So just pass this as it's your constructor. So having done that, so let's create a method for this. First, let's go to this interface. Let's have this method defined. Let's task to bracket, because we'll be using our service response class to manage the return type, right? So for now, let's pass dynamic because we don't know what will be returning yet. So create account async, right? So we have what is user DTO, right? Okay, we have it to be user DTO, right? So then define the variables payload. Yours might be different, depends on your approach. So this service response class. So let's bring in the right. Yeah, having done that, so let's go to our implementation. So it's not running right because it's not yet implemented. So let's implement it. Just right click and then click on the implement interface. Press Ctrl period. Then this option will be displayed, and then just select implement interface. Right, the interface have been implemented. Right. So guys, I beg your pardon. I will want to change this user interface to create account interface. This user DTO, I will change it to create account DTO because I want the method to to name of the detail to match whatever I named the method, right? So just go like this, rename it to create account DT. Press enter, then you are renaming a file. Would you like to rename this project on all references? Just click yes so that it will rename it across board and everywhere we have reference it, right? Just accept it and click yes. So look at it, create account detail. And then if you go back to the interface, right? So we also have it renamed here. So that's fine, guys. So the next thing, let's even test what we have built so far. Let's run it. So guys, this is what we have so far, and this look like nothing is happening yet because this is still like how we started the project, but a lot has happened. So and then let's go and create the controller so that we'll see that so that our controller will be part of what will be displayed there. So let's go. Let me stop it from running. Then right, so let's go to a controller, right click hard and then select controller. So don't forget, so see, I'm going to give it the same name, select API and then select empty controller, then click on hard. So give it this name, right? By default create a controller values controller, but give it your own name. So which I'll be using account, yeah, account, yeah. So just click on hard. So we have the account creator. Look at the route. The route is going to follow this format, right? It's going to be your base URL /API / the controller name, which is account, and then / the name of the method. So what we'll be doing here, right? So let's create the method, right? So it's going to be inside this guy. So we also need to create a constructor, right? Because we'll be injecting some services, right? So let's bring in our interface first. I beg your pardon. Private read only. We have a high account. Yeah, I think high account service. Yeah, high account service. Then let's give it account service. Copy this, right? So pass it to your constructor. So you can also do something like this. This dot account service equals to account service, right? It's pretty much the same thing, but this is the way I love to write my code. Very clear and concise there. So I put underscore here to make it, and then I will take out this, right? So let's create a method, right? We have here, the method is going to be a post, right? HTTP posts, pass the name of the method, and then that's a create account. Beg your pardon, is going to be a string, create account. So having done that, let's create a method under it. It's going to be public async, right? Task pass I action result, right? Then the name of the method create. I always like to use the same name, right? Create account, then it's going to read from body, right? From body, then you pass your create account DTU, then define this as payload. So let's have this, then let's create a variable for response or service response equals to let's bring in our service response class, service response. So because what we are currently passing is dynamic, right? Right, I beg your pardon, this has to be this surface response, and then let's bring it here. Okay, there's a typo error here, so let's try it again. Surface response. Okay, let's do this, and then service response equals to, which is our account service dot create account async. Then you pass the payload, pass it to the method, then return status code, pass it to service response dot status code command the object itself. Right, so let's now take a look at what is wrong with our service response. Let me go into this, copy this. Am I missing out anything? All right, so I think the spelling is correct now. Let's see. Server response does not exist in the current context, then bring it in then. Okay, let's try this. Just copy, because service response is seated inside common folder. Grab this, then take it to your controller. Right, using non-invocable method. I beg your pardon, I forgot to add new. Wow, yeah, we have it fixed, and then just await this. Await. Yeah, we have it. Everything is set. Now let's run our application again to see what we have. Run it. Yeah, we have our application up and running. So let's check what we have inside this method, API /account create account. Let's try it out. So we have email, first name, last name. So let's even fire this first, execute. We should get an error. Yes, unresolved service type, this, right? Because we have not registered our dependency. So let's go and do that right now. Right, let me stop it from running. So let's go to our solution explorer. Then I have a folder here, service collection. This is where I want to register all my services. Then, because I always like to keep my code clean and clear, so that is why I created a folder for that purpose. Right, let's see how it works in action. So the first thing I will do here is right click and then click on add. Let's create a static class. So I will give it a name, service collections, right? Service collections. Okay, let me rename it to service collection extension, right? Beg your pardon, service collection extension. Because I don't want the name to clash with the folder name. That's why I'm doing this. Service collection extension, right? Okay, yes. Then change this to static class, right? Static. Then inside this guy, let's have another static public static and then iService collection. iService collection, then app service collections. So inside this method, we're going to do iService collection, then which is our services, right? iService collection. So inside this, so we are going to have us iConfiguration. Let's bring you the configuration interface, then configuration, right? So this is going to be this. All right, inside this, we are going to add our register our dependency here. Don't forget we got a dependency injection error, right? So services dot add a scope. So you need to read about scope, read about all this injection method. We have scope, we have singleton, so on others. So it's going to be high account service, right? Account service, then account service, right? Control period to bring in the namespace. Yeah, so then we're going to return the service. So having done that, let's go and register this in our program files.cs, solution explorer, program files.cs. So you can register it somewhere here, right? Just bring it to app service collection, then pass builder dot configuration to the method. Then what's this saying? Does not exist. Okay, let's press Ctrl period to bring it in. Your pattern is supposed to be builder.services, yeah. Let's can now inject, bring in the namespace. Yeah, so our dependency has been registered, right? So let's go back to our account service, put a breakpoint here. So the error should be different now. Let's run it. Okay, we have an error here. So let's quickly let's take a look at it. Some services are not be able to be constructed error while validating the service decrypt store service style web API, this account service lifetime scope. Okay, there's an error here. So let's review it. Let's go to our account service. Okay, user manager. This. Okay. All right. So this is the reason why we're having this error. Let's resolve it because we are using identity user and we are yet to define it or register it. So let's do that. So let's resolve the error that we encountered, right? So, and don't forget that the reason why we encounter that error is because we are using user manager and then which is from an identity user. So this guy has not been registered or configured, and that's what we'll be doing here right now. So let me have the code here, right? So there's it. So this is what we are supposed to configure, and then look at it. The region start from here, region right identity by services dot add identity core, then you pass your entity, which is our user class here, then identity dot services, then you pass your user and then the identity row. So this place is specifying how this is one of the security that we are adding to our application. And don't forget, so part of what we'll be covering is identity. So let me go back here. Identity, user authentication and authorization role base. Then so, and this has just begun in our application. So the identity options, or we are specifying the lockout. So default options. So the lockout will last for just 15 minutes, and then maximum try account sound. This is to specify that after user have tried an login attempt for 5 times, it should log them out. So this is part of the security that we are also adding to the application. Allow for new users, and then also add entity framework or store, and then pass your appdb context to it, and then add default token provider. I am also overriding the identity password rule here. So by default it's 6, but so you can also, depends on what you are building or how you want to secure your application, or the password root you want to specify. So I can change this to 8 or whatever, or 8 or 3, but I'm going to leave it at 6, and then require non-alphanumeric, alphanumeric, right? Either you can set it to true or false, and every other root here require digits, require lowercase, require uppercase, right? You can also set this to true or false, require confirm phone number. So in this case, we are not going to enforce phone number confirmation, so that's why I'm setting it to false. Other allow user character. So this will not, this is protecting the user, protecting your application from allowing the user to use space or whatever character that you don't want from your application, then return the services. So let's run it and see what we have. So guys, let's test run it. Right, we have the application running. Let's execute. Yeah, we have it here. We have it on our debugger. Then throw this guy, continue. Yeah, so yeah, this is normal now because method of operation is not implemented. So let's go and implement the method. So let's have what will be returning the define here, right? Let's wrap it and try a catch method, right? Okay, So this will help us catch whatever error that we might encounter. Going to be service response, right, equals to new service response, right. So having done that, we need to also check if the user already exists or not. So I'm going to have another variable declared is user exists, right, by calling this method await user manager dot find user by email. Then you pass the email of the user into the method, right. If this guy is user exists is null, right. I beg your pardon, is not null. If it is not null, we want to throw this error, right. Service response to data, just return empty array equals to new this, right. And then the message service response dot message equals to, so user already exists, right. Then let's specify the status code service response dot status code equals to, right, you have to pass this guy http. So we are using this guy to unbox this data type, right. So if you don't know how to use this or know what it means, so you might need to read boxing and unboxing to unbox the data, because this guy is a string. The http status code is a string, right, and then this guy is an integer, so we are converting it from string to an integer. http status code dot bad request, right. So and what again, by default is going to return status. Well, by default, let's open this guide again. By default, this success is going to return false, so you don't need to specify it. Then just return service response, right. Having done that, so this will check if that user has been registered before or not. All right, so the next thing is to let's write new user equals to new user, that's our entity. So let's now specify what we want to register. We have our first name to be equals to payload dot first name, right. Then let's bring in the last name to be equals to payload dot last name. Then what again, address to be equals to address. Then the next one is let's bring in email to be equals to this, and then let's phone number not is confirmed, the phone number itself is equals to payload dot phone number, right. Then created that will be attached by default. So let's go there. We already set it to be this guy, datetime.etc now. So what's again? Okay, we can just bring in, so because updated as, so let's still update it that same day. So right, as we don't have any, instead of it us to leave it as a null, so you can just pass it to be the same day, date time.utc beg your pardon, this is it now. So these are just the basic, and then let's also include the username to be equals to, let's equals it to the payload dot email. Username is also the email. All right. What again? I think that's all for now. Then let's register it. Right. So by calling, let me have this variable declared response equals to await. Then call the user manager dot create account, then pass the entity to the create async method. Then we want to check if registration is successful or not. Now, if response dot not this dot is succeeded, right? Call this guy. If response is succeeded, so in that case, do this, but I'm going to do if it is not succeeded, because I want to have some kind of a clear message I want to return back to the client. Let me have this variable declared like error message. Let's do equals to string dot empty. Right. So having done that, now because it's come as an array, so let's just for each the error comes as an array. I mean the response comes as an array. Does this incur error? Does this, right? All right. So beg your pardon, I want to format it properly. So should in case we have the error, we are going to have it's going to be error message, which is what we declare here, this error msg, then error msg dot error description equals to beg your pardon, equals to error, which we have here, dot error description. All right, so having done that, so let's now manage what we are going to return. Service response dot data dot data dot data equals to still new this, just return empty array. Then service response dot message equals to the message. So the status code is going to be bad request, service response dot status code equals to unbox this as well, int dot http status code dot bad request, right? Then return the service response. So what's this one saying? Saying not all code return, yeah, path. So let's return the service response, service response. So that error should not occur again. We shouldn't have that error again, right? So this is all right. So now if this guy is not successful, do this and then return the response. However, if we have a successful call, right? So let me just, if it was successful, then service response dot data, you might want to return data So in this case, let's just return let's return the payload itself. So we'll try to manage, because it's not good to return the password as well. So it's because of, I think we are not collecting the password, we can return this directly to the client, or we might want to also return the user ID. We'll manage that later. So let's go with this for now. Service response dot status code. In this case now, because successful is going to be right, that's http dot, beg your pardon, http status code dot OK, right, and then so let's have message response dot message, then equals to this. We are going to have registration successful. All right, registration successful. So having done that, we need to also include the success service response dot success, then it's now set it to true. By default is false. Set it to true. So if you don't want to be doing this, if you know all the status code, instead of passing http status code dot OK or dot bad request, you can also pass this to hit directly. You can also pass 200. So it depends on, but if you are using it this way, make sure that others are also passed this way, because so as you have uniformity in your code. But I'm not going to use it this way, and I will advise you to, if you're a starter, you are just starting up, so use it this way so that you don't have to cram all the status code, right? So by the time you use it this way, then just do http status code dot whatever status code you want to return. So this one bad request, which is 400, then this is okay, which is 200, and then we have greater, which is 201. So it depends on your application. So we haven't managed the exception yet. Okay, let's quickly do that. Then exception equals to, so you don't need to return what exactly that went wrong in your application. I'll just copy this status code, and then the service response here, put it here. I'm not going to throw any exception, but what I will just return is, as messages, internal server error. So return this guy, internal server error. So by the time we implement a logging mechanism, right, so we'll be able to use the log to trace whatever that went wrong in your application. But don't ever return exception message back to the client, right? Just return empty array here, right? So then this will help us to manage our exception. So let's see what we have now. Let's go and test run our application. Just click on. Before we do that, so we need to run a migration, because if you run it this way now, or we test our application like this, it will throw exception of database not found. So let's quickly run our migration. Let's go to package manager, then run migration like this, add migration, then give it a name. So this is, because this is our first migration, I'll give it init, which means initial migration init, and then hit your enter button. So it's also building the application at the same time. Build succeeded. After building, then it will run the migration. Right. So migration, we have the migration here. So just as I said earlier, so it's going to create the table is going to follow the default table, but we'll change this later, right? So we have ASP.NET rules, we have users, ASP.NET users, where we have our ID, first name, and every other information that was provided, right? So let's update the database let's run update database for the changes to take effect on our database. Then by running this command, update database. Right, it's also building. Then all right, we have the database updated. Good. So by this, now we can go ahead to test our application. Just run it. Okay, we have our application up and running, but instead of using Swagger to test, so I'll transfer this payload to Postman for easy testing, and then for us to have our data saved. So instead of inputting the request or the payload every time we want to test it, right? Let's just add a request. I have the folder, the collection created already, web API. Then let me add a request. So change this guy to a post. Then we can name this guy to create create account. Been done that, so go to your body, right? Change it to raw and then JSON, paste it. Then you have them. Let's copy the base URL, which is this. Copy this, then you paste it here, /API / the name of the method, create account. Right, so this guy, let's start with the email address. alasamforlife@gmail.com. Then first name to be this. Input your first name, Samo. Right, so my last name is Olatunji. Then my password, let me pick this Samsung. Right, then address, let me say number 14 Lagos Road. Right, my phone number to be this. All right, so let's run it. Before we do that, let's put a breakpoint on our application. So we go to the method and put a breakpoint on service. Okay, we already have a breakpoint here. Now let's go and run it. Right, so for method not found API. We are supposed to have had accounts here. Accounts, that's the name of the controller. Right, so account / create account. Yeah, should be able to find the method now. Yeah, we are here. So let's step over the code. Step over. Right, let's check, is user exist? Is no, right? User does not exist. So create manager. So we have a response, which is succeeded, true. All right, so then return response. So we have the account has been successfully created. Don't forget that we are not meant to return the password. We'll take care of this later, and then we have our status code. So let's try to create an account with this same record once again. Hit it. Then let's go here. So see, because this user already exists, right? Now we have a bad request, then return the response. User already, I beg your pardon, this is supposed to be A, had already existed right here. Then continue. Yeah, user already exists. Right. So there is something that's we need to check, because we are supposed to force the user to use combination of number and character. So let's check what we define in our identity rule to see. Let's go and check. Stop the application from running. Then go to service collection extension. Let's require uppercase. Yes, let's set this to true. Let's still leave it as false. No, set it to true. Set it to true. And require alphanumeric. Require digit, yes. Okay. Require confirm phone number, require uppercase. Then let's also increase this. Increase this to 8 to test to be able. So I will test and be sure that our password rule or identity rule is really working. So save, then run the app again. All right, the app is running. So let's check what we have. So let's go back to Postman. So let's change this to, let's just add one to this guy, so that will be different from the previous email. And then let's leave this as we have it, Samsung, the same password. Then let's run it. So we have the app here, the request here. So it's running. So it has checked the user is null. User does not exist. Let's try to create again. Right, by this we also have it successful. Something is not well configured. So let's take a look at it. Because we have specified the password root to be 8 character long, and we have 6, and we are still able to register it. So let's take a look at what is going on here. Stop the application from running. Okay, let's review what we have here. This is good. Required uppercase. Okay, this is good. The password identity, we are good here. So let's check what is the problem. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. I forgot to pass the password here. So that is why. So let's do this now. All right, going to be after you pass the entity, pass the password, which is payload dot password. So it's just allowing the password to, it's just creating the user without password. So let's run it again. We should have all the expected, the rule now. We should be getting the expected result now, right? Let's do this. So I'll just change this to 2. Let's change this to 2 so we have what to use, and then click on send. Right, we are here. Let's check. It's checking. User does not exist. Right, so let's try to create now. Let's see what is the response. Right, failed. Yes, we have all the rules now. So it's password too short. Passwords must be at least 8 as we specify in the password rule. So let's check the next error. So password must have at least non-alphanumeric character, of course, yes, based on what we set in the rule. and then password must have at least 0 digits, 0 to 9. So let's stop the app from running. Okay, we don't need to stop it from running. Let's just continue. Password must have at least this, right? So let's now include, let's say Samsung, then 1 2, then I will include special character, which is at, right? It's now up to 8 or even more. So let's try to register again. So this is the database, and then let's check the table. So like, I think as I mentioned earlier, so the identity server created all this by default, but so in the course of this tutorial, we'll see how we can change it to our desired name, right? So but for now, let's take a look at what we have inside ASP.NET users. Just select this, right? It's executing. So for now, so these are the record we have in the database. So look at the last one we created, right? This is the only data that has password hash, because the other one, so we did not specify, we forgot to pass the password. That was why we were able to register without all those password rules. So look at them, the password are empty. So guys, we've been able to cover some be able to cover some from some topic or some functions out of what we are supposed to cover. So these are the things we are building on, right? Identity. So we will be looking at authentication and authorization in my next series. So stay tuned, guys. Please follow for more. So let's build this together. Thank you. Bye.